Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint podcast. Today we're joined by Livi.
Hi.
And she's a freelancer who literally just started her journey.
Exactly.
So I'm very excited to have her on this podcast today. In this podcast we're going to talk in general about freelancing, what it's really like, so we can help you, equip you along the way on your own freelance journey. Yeah, so Livi and I met years ago because she's my best friend's sister's best friend.
Yeah, actually it's a really complicated backstory there. But yeah, it's true. We know each other for what, 15 years now?
15 years,
yeah.
oh God. So I'm in Barcelona, she lives in Barcelona, and she just started freelancing, so welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm very excited to be here. I'm also a bit nervous, so let's see how it goes, but I'm very, very happy to be part of it.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
I've been living here in Barcelona now for 10 years. I came right after school. I kind of took a gap year, so I was not sure what I want to do. So then I decided, okay, Barcelona is the place to kind of take a time out. And I kind of just came for a few months, and now I've been here for almost 10 years, so it got a bit out of hand. I started working in agencies, like in marketing. My background's like in social media and marketing. I started working first in agencies. There I guess most of the people who start to work in agencies, after some time you kind of see it's a super hectic and busy day. So then I switched to the brand side. I was working for a few brands, and in the last few years I was in startup companies. Mm-hmm. So that's always super exciting because it's like a new project, you have a lot of freedom to do stuff and also to learn stuff, but at some point it's also a bit frustrating because it's just a ton of work, and usually a lot of the companies run out of money or because there's no funding. So I just kind of got tired to repeat the process every time. I just, as you said, I just started to freelance. In January, the last company I was at, they had a really big financial problem, so they had to let go of a lot of people that were in the company. And for me, it was kind of like a wake-up call. So I took the time, and first I went to Africa for a month. I volunteered.
Nice. Were you one of the people that were let go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they had to really cut budgets, and how they do it usually in the startups, they cut the highest salaries. Yeah. So they let go all of the senior people and hired interns.
Okay.
So that was kind of a bit frustrating, especially after you've been there for a year and something, and you pour your heart into the project, you really get along well with the team, and then kind of it's not due to your performance or something, it's just due to financial reasons. And this happens a lot in startup companies. Basically, that's it.
I talked to a few people about freelancing, perm jobs, and people often think being in a permanent job is secure. But how do you feel now that you've gone freelance literally this week? I think you started your new gig, compared to when you were still in a permanent employment, knowing that you've been made redundant. Do you feel more secure in your job as a freelancer, even though you just started, or do you think there's more security in a permanent job?
Well, that's the first argument I heard when I kind of shared the idea that I wanted to start freelancing. You're gonna leave a really well-paid job to go freelance. You have no security. And then basically what happened in my last job, I had a permanent contract. It was all going super well, and then end of the year came and they got the numbers, and it was just oh wow, we have to let go of 8 people. It's just an illusion of security.
Yes, I agree.
So I really think this way, at least I'm in charge of how my destiny is gonna go. Yeah. So I really feel that since that happened, I just felt okay, this false sense of security, it's just an illusion, and it's better maybe to try to make it on your own. And at least know that you tried it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what exactly do you do? So you said social media marketing. What exactly are your tasks, and what did you get hired for on your first freelance gig?
The past few years I've been doing kind of everything in communication, so starting from social media, but it reached also to email marketing, influencer marketing. In my last job I did event management as well, so kind of the whole package. But it's true, like I'm focusing on social media, so that would include, first of all, like a social media audit, where you kind of look how does the client perform, what are they doing well, what could they do differently, what is their competition doing. Then you kind of you focus on their strategy, like how to make a tailored strategy to their business or their organization. Then basically see what kind of content is performing well, what kind of collaborations we can do to kind of push the brand awareness, to depending on what the client is looking for, with brand awareness or maybe sales. So yeah, it really depends on each of the clients. Gig I just booked.
It's an international organization. They're a non-profit, so basically for them it's really important to push brand awareness especially. So we're going kind of in that direction.
Okay, nice. How did you get into social media?
Well, it was, I don't want to say by chance. I studied marketing and advertising here in Barcelona. When I came out of university, I kind of felt that I really wasn't that well prepared for the job market. So I started to work in the first agency. The first thing they asked me, like when I started, do you know how to put on Facebook ads? I was like, what's a Facebook ad?
Yeah.
So basically that was like, I mean, it's also almost 6-7 years ago, but still, you know, you go to university for such a long time and then like the basic knowledge, they're not up to date. So that was kind of like a disappointment for me at that moment. Yeah, so I kind of started in that agency there from the basics, and now I kind of saw that I really like it because it's a very dynamic environment. So it changes a lot, it's very, very interesting to be in it. And I feel there's a lot of potential as well for a lot of brands, also for personal brands, people who kind of just starting out, for example, freelancing. You don't have to be a really big brand with a lot of budget to kind of have an impact. So that's why I really like social media in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so interesting, especially I've been a little bit more active on social media in the last 6 months or something. And you start to connect with people. You're like, I know exactly what that feels like. You start to talk, you give each other tips. I've never met those people in person. Some of them I hopped on a call with, and it's like, oh my God, this is such a great person. I understand there's so many bad things about social media as well.
Yeah, of course.
But there's also a lot of good things if you use it the right way. If you were to start today in like trying to get into social media, and you said you studied but you didn't feel like it's up to date, if you wanted to do what you're doing now but you have no idea about social media, how would you get started?
First of all, I would get a mentor. I think it's such an important thing, and I didn't think it was, but in the end, to have someone to kind of guide you and tell you, look, this is how I do things, this is how like we done it in my company, how I learned it in the past. I mean, there are a lot of courses out there, so I would definitely also say like you can get online courses and educate yourself, but it's still like this, for at least for me, it's a super vital part to have like this one person or maybe even more people that you can have kind of this exchange of, you know, I really was thinking about doing this. How do you usually do it? How do you get best results? For example, for paid campaigns, because that's something that I was struggling with a bit more because I didn't do it so much in the past. So when I got back into paid ads, I was like, oh my God, okay, where do I start? You know, like, and maybe the tools have changed, and maybe I need to, you know, set some different parameters. So to get someone who is working with it day to day and has really this kind of insight and can share it with you, I think it's really worth investing in that.
I hope you don't just say this because you know I'm kind of like offering.
No, definitely not.
But I agree. I think it's so useful when you have someone who's done it before. And I was super lucky when I started freelancing because the person who hired me, she was a woman. She was a CXO. I didn't even know the job title existed. So I'm doing UX design.
Yeah.
And where do I start? And then she was like, okay, if I were you, I would start with an umbrella company. And then if you figure out, okay, freelancing is for you, you can set up a limited company. But see first if, like all these kind of things, I had no idea what's like, what is an umbrella company. I thought it's like, you know, like how Coca-Cola is an umbrella of Sprite and I don't know what other brands there are. I thought that's what an umbrella is. No, it's something else in the freelance world. It was so useful. And she was also like, okay, this is going to be your day rate. This is how you write the invoice properly. And it was so helpful. I mean, I think I could have figured those things out on my own, but it was just so much easier having her who has done it before show me how to do it. And also with the courses, I agree with what you said, university. Like some degrees you spend years doing that. And those boot camps, they compress all of it into like a short amount of time, and it's the most latest. It's like when I started UX design, for example, Sketch was the design tool, and now it's Figma, and nobody's using Sketch anymore. And who knows if this is gonna still be the most relevant. Maybe in the future there's gonna be something else, especially now that Adobe bought Figma and stuff. And I guess for you the same, like maybe Twitter was big, and now like, what's going on, maybe who knows what direction it's gonna go. Maybe there's gonna be other social media tools. Nobody thought TikTok was big, but then it blew up, so there will always be something you have to learn. Are you still taking courses now, or do you Google things? Like, how do you try and keep up to date?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, like back to what you were saying, like about university and the courses, it was a really big kind of arguing point when I told my parents I want to like start freelancing, and they were like, "Oh yeah, sure, go for it, but don't you want to get a master's degree?" Like, because I have a bachelor, and then I started to work. And for them, it's like, especially my dad, he's like, "Oh, you should get a master's, you should get a master's." Because for him, it's like the way they open their mind to new ideas and new technologies and stuff. And then when I tell him, like, you know, I know people who did masters in marketing or in social media or in business management, and most of them tell me, "Oh, it's super obsolete. Like, I basically just paid $5,000 for a paper," you know, so stuff like that. And they kind of, I feel they don't really get it. I mean, in the end, they just want you to succeed, you know. But I think it's also kind of the responsibility of each of us to defend this idea we have, because if not, if you kind of listen to my parents, and I really value the opinion of my parents, but I mean, they grew up in a different time. They for them as well, like they were like, "Are you sure you want to freelance? Like, it's not the most secure thing." So it's a really, really different path for them that maybe they don't even understand yet. So I think it's kind of like guiding them through it, and not just get influenced too much by their opinion. Because for me, it was like every time I was on a call with them, it was like, a master's degree.
But it's good that you said no to that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was 18, 19, and I finished my A-levels, and then I went to film school.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to go. I really loved editing, filming, all this kind of stuff. But the school was really bad.
Yeah.
So they kind of, it ruined my passion for it in a way. Like, I'm slowly getting it back. Like now, like recording this kind of stuff, it's like, oh, it's fun. But I'm kind of like grieving that potential like filmmaker that was traveling for, like, anyway. Because film school was so bad, I quit.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd not be someone who would quit a degree. And I told my dad I'm gonna quit, and he was like, "Oh," like I had 2 part-time jobs at that, like weekend jobs, you know, waiting tables, selling stuff in the furniture store. And my dad was like, "Oh, just make one of them your full-time job, so you're doing something." And I just did, because I thought my dad is smart, he knows. And I wasted 2-3 years of my life just doing that job, because I was so exhausted. I didn't have the energy. I did apply for a few jobs, but even though those would be jobs where at the end of the year, like if I would have applied after A-levels, they probably would have hired me. But because they see a shop assistant, they're like, "Oh, you're a salesperson, we're not gonna." So yes, take other people's opinion into account, but listen to what you actually want to do. And like you said, they come from a different time. Nowadays things change so quickly.
No, for me, that's exactly it. So when I was telling them, "No, you know, I want to invest in courses," but of course it's not the same as a master. So I think that's really the big difference. But back to the question you were asking. So yeah, I do courses. Like, especially now, I wasn't doing courses that are too expensive because I couldn't afford it right now on the pay I had, etc. But it's really, I'm starting to budget it into like my monthly expenses, that at least I can dedicate some amount of the money that I'm earning to educating myself more in, especially like in the area that I'm working in, and also maybe like mindfulness, business savvy, because I feel that something, especially when you work alone, it's so important to kind of know how to set boundaries, and maybe also kind of the procrastination thing that we've been talking about before we started filming, and like it's just yeah, like a lot of things that maybe don't have to do so much with the professional world, but more like with your personal world. And that if that is going well.
I think also what you said with like getting a mentor, I think another very important thing is that you surround yourself with people doing similar things.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the exact same thing, but if you know other freelancers and you're like I have freelance friends who are like, what do you charge a late payment fee? What is that?
Yeah.
Or I have friends who are like, oh, I never thought of like setting an out of office. Even if I go on holiday, it would just like I would just still check my inbox.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but how do you switch off then?
Yeah.
So it's things like that that you learn from other freelancers. I find it so interesting because we're both from Austria.
Yeah.
Or grew up in Austria. You have different roots as well, right?
Yeah, my parents are from Slovakia.
Okay, yeah. I think it's so interesting because I met so many freelancers who are very interested in talking about financing.
Yeah.
And perm employees would be like, no, I'm not going to talk. Or like, they wouldn't say it this way, but you can tell they're very uncomfortable talking about it. I find it so funny because freelancers are like, yeah, I want to know what other people are earning and I'm happy to share what I'm earning. And usually when you're in a perm job, it's like, I don't want people to know what I'm earning. But then it's like, when you don't tell, you don't know if maybe they're earning more than you for the same job. Maybe you should ask for more.
Yeah.
How do you feel now that you, like as a freelancer, you always have to make sure you get enough money coming in? How did you manage your finances? Especially, you said you got made redundant around January.
Yeah.
And now it's end of May, June. How do you manage your finances?
Well, I have to say it was kind of a pain point, you know, because I travel a lot.
And it's also part why I finally chose to start to freelance. Because I've been living in Barcelona for a long time now, and it's very expensive. Like compared to what you earn as a permanent employee to what you actually manage to save up, it's really nothing. Like it's very, very little, especially, I mean, of course, if you stay at home and you don't do anything, you can save up money. But then, for example, we pay rent here. It's almost 1,100 euros per month. I share a flat with my boyfriend. Basically, this on a normal pay in Barcelona, you're lucky if you kind of manage to save up 200, 300 euros per month. And then with 200, 300 euros you save up per month, and you then maybe say, okay, I'm going to want to go travel for 3 weeks. That's where your savings go, you know? So for me, it was kind of frustrating because I said like, okay, I'm trying to save up. I don't go out that much. I maybe, don't go and buy clothes, and I save up because I really want to invest like in experiences and travel. But then in the end of the year, you still kind of think like, okay, and my pension, and maybe if I actually want to save up for, I don't know, like some bigger expenses, it's nothing. Then when I started, I started to think about freelancing, and I was talking to friends that actually freelance. They were like, no, like I tripled my salary. Like I'm living my best life because I can move away for some time and like save on rent, or I can do this and that to kind of actually make kind of like a pension plan, make like plan for savings, invest my money. So that's all stuff that I've been pretty late on, I would say, because I think there's also not such a big culture around money. At least when we were small, it was like no one talked to you about how to deal with money. So of course it was like, don't spend more than you have, of course. But there wasn't like, as class in school, like, okay, you need to do this and this to set up a pension fund, or you need to do this and this to invest your money.
Pension fund, it's one of the things that I talk to a lot of freelancers, and they don't have anything for the pension. Because when you work, you automatically get some money deducted for your pension scheme. And I don't know what the rules are in Spain, Slovakia, or Austria. In the UK, I have my private pension pot. I have my company pension pot. I accumulated all my pensions from my previous employments.
Oh, wow,
And now there's 3 pension pots. Maybe I should accumulate them, but one of them I cannot pay into if it's from a limited company. So it's like I should eventually sort them out, but I'm investing in my pension. And I think it's very, very important that you do that. So don't forget about that.
Actually it's the first thing I want to set up now this summer.
Okay, perfect.
Because I still need to kind of get informed about it. But here is, you pay a certain amount, like your social security, which also goes, a part of it goes to your pension. But it's like minimum, you know. Yeah, definitely I'm thinking about that, especially, you know, you never know about the economics and so on, so definitely better to have it on the private side, I guess.
And another really important thing is to kind of save up for a buffer, because like it's great if you have returning clients, but sometimes, and it doesn't have anything to do with your skills, sometimes there is no demand in the market, or like very low demand, or people are busy with other things, or there's just something where maybe you don't get work for like a while. So it's always good to have some extra savings. So what I do is like I definitely put all the money that I know I potentially put into tax into a separate account, and you can put it into a savings account where you get paid interest. So maybe if you know, okay, by 2024 in July I have to, so like in 1 year from now I have to pay X amount of tax. Put that into a 1 year fixed savings account. It's free money. You might not get a lot, but like now with the economics, the interest rates are actually going up, and yes, you pay income tax on that extra interest, but in the end you still make free money out of it. And like that's something that I only learned after like 3 years of freelancing. It's like, what? I put all that money on the side, but it's just sitting there. Yes, it's gonna go to the tax man, but I could have made like a couple £100 from it more. And with those extra, like let's say £200-300 a year, it's like, oh, that's a course. Like
of course, you can do something.
Or it's like a outsourcing something. So it's always good to do that, and always putting the money that you're about to pay into tax aside, because you don't want to get into trouble with that.
So that's something I really kind of I learned from you, and also from my other friends that are freelancing already, like to kind of put money on side and kind of count on the worst case scenario, and then be happy if the best case scenario happens, but just to be prepared. And exactly.
But of course, like don't count every single penny, because like the reason you go freelance is also that you have more money, so live life, and you can expense. I mean, I don't know how it is in Spain, but I'm pretty sure you can expense things as well.
Exactly. I mean, you need to check. I can't expense my holidays, but but a lot of stuff you can. And then like also what I kind of struggled with in the beginning, like now in the beginning, but also like in the past when I was fully employed, is kind of to ask for money, because you kind of think, wow, okay, I'm already earning, I don't know, 2,200 euros. Okay, so you're like, you know, it's a high salary for Spain and whatever. But then, for example, I learned in the past company for the same job, not even for the same job, like for an agency that they paid to do like a fifth part of my job, they paid I think 10,000 euros per month. So then kind of it gets into perspective, because you know they paid, the agency maybe had a contingent of, I don't know, 15 hours per week, and the work they put in is like minimal, but then the agency is not afraid to ask for more money, and since they need it, they're prepared to pay it. So for me, it's kind of, this was kind of like a wake-up call. I mean, of course, in the beginning you can't like just invoice, okay, I'm gonna, you know, invoice 10,000 euros to this kind. But if the company is going well, they usually have money, and they have a certain budget prepared to spend on like a qualified person. So
I'm not surprised at all about the prices an agency gets, because I think people like, it's an agency, it's more than one person, it's this, that. So I'm charging on a day rate. Some people charge on a project rate. I'm just really bad with estimating how much time things take me. That's why I just feel safer with a day rate. I feel like it should not be against time, but then also I do invest time, which is why I'm a bit worried with like project-based rates. But it's about the value you give them. It's a good way to charge based on the value you give. So if maybe a social media post takes you 5 minutes, I know it's going to take a while, but let's say it takes you 5 minutes, but then that goes viral. They have 100,000 more followers. If you charge them, like because of those 5 minutes, you charge them, I don't know, £50, 50 euros, whatever, for one post, but then it blows up because you know your stuff, you know how to make it go viral, you know how to get engagement, whatever the KPIs are for social media. It's the value you give them. So once met this guy who was best friends with someone who was like Made in Chelsea first, which is like this UK TV show. And he was saying that she posts twice per day, and she makes 2,000 grand like £2,000.
Yeah.
2,000 crowns. £2,000 per Instagram post.
Yeah, that's possible.
Because she has 1 million followers and also a very targeted, specific niche. So, and initially I was like, wow, like why do people pay that much for a post? But then they get so much more out of it.
No, it's crazy. Like I've worked with influencers, and I got like requests for like 5,000 euros per post.
Wow.
So and it's not really like I was thinking about like, wow. I mean, of course, big companies get so much more out of it, but it's kind of starting to get inaccessible, you know, for smaller companies, because it was a way for smaller companies to kind of get into the niche, and it was a way to be very, very close to the consumer. I think it still is, but for example, I really select who I follow or not anymore.
Yeah.
So I like these really, really big influencers, unless I'm like, wow, I love this person because, you know, they, for example, I love surfing and I love like vegetarian diet and like plant-based, whatever. So for me, I follow these kind of people, and unless I'm like really feeling like close to them or saying like, oh, you know, I'm really identifying with what they are saying in the rest of their posts and so on, I'm not following this person. And so for me it would be I really need to feel like this connection, and even then I'm super skeptical about what they are like talking about, but maybe it's because I'm in the industry, so I kind of know the background, but still I'm still more inclined to maybe buy something that they offer.
It's funny because I have like my private Instagram account where I follow my friends, and every now and then like also some influencers, because they post information that I'm interested in, like health, nutrition and stuff. And then on my work account I pretty much follow just like UX designers, other designers, entrepreneurs. And it's so funny because you can tell some companies have like a social media campaign, because 5 out of the 10 main influencers I follow on my work account are talking about the same software. It's like, okay, do they actually use this?
Yeah, or it's just a campaign.
Or is it just a campaign? Like, how can you tell?
First of all, if it's a campaign, they need to like say so in the description.
Yeah, so it says
exactly. It can't be just if they do that, you can actually denounce it. So it's not legal. But yeah, especially for people who are not working in this industry and are maybe not like really so digital, like this new generation, it can be tricky to kind of see the difference.
But I mean, like I see it's an ad. I know they promote it. They all have a discount code that if you sign up with them, they get a discount. Blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, I'm interested in this. One is like an invoicing tool, which I want to automate because you know, this one specific client that doesn't pay their invoice. So if it's just an automated, oh, this is an automated note that this invoice hasn't been paid, blah blah blah. You know, something like that. So they've all been promoting that same tool. I've never heard of it before. So you could like, oh, I prefer this freelancer, or this freelancer doesn't have that many followers, so I'm going to use his code. You probably get the same kind of stuff. But then it's like, do they actually use the product, or are they just paid a lot of money because they're very in that niche? So when you do your marketing campaigns, like, do you send, I don't know, what if it is like a product or something, that do you send them the product for them to try, or is it like, oh, here's money if you say you're using this chocolate tea, whatever?
For me in the past, when we've been working with influencers, it was always in companies that had products, so it was not a service, it was product based. First it was a cosmetics company, and then it was like a healthcare cosmetics company as well. So basically what we did, most of the influencers we've been working on with, it's been based on product exchange. The main reason being because it was a startup and they didn't have money to invest in. So there's a really big workload behind, like contacting a person that could be interested, talking to them about the product, convincing them. You send them the product to test, and then ideally you kind of get a contract out of it, and you said, okay, we send you more of this product to test if you promote it, etc. this doesn't work always like that. So if there are bigger influencers, and I'm like, if I'm saying bigger, it starts sometimes already with 10,000 followers. So it's
Which
getting,
for me is big.
no,
Yeah.
of course, but like in the industry, if you say 10,000, it's a micro influencer, you know, and then you have the big ones which are like from maybe 150 upwards. But yeah, someone who has 10,000, I mean, of course, for me, it's also like, oh, well, it's starting to, they have like a niche, they have a audience, but they are not like super big influencers. So I think what small brands do a lot, they go to this kind of people who are still willing to be, who are still happy to be approached by brands, by small brands as well, and that they are maybe open to test those products as well. But yeah, definitely big influencers, they sometimes they can be also very rude. They are like, oh, you know, like if I don't get, I don't know, 1,500 euros for one post, I'm not interested. So it's like, I mean, yeah, but don't you even want to test it? There are these kinds of people, but there are also the people who are like really faithful to their audience and who have a very strong policy on what they try and what they don't try.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of people who I think are the most interesting ones. And also these are the people that in the end you will end up finding and you will end up following, because like if the person you're following every second day there's a second brand, a third, fifth brand, you will be like, okay, they're basically just like setting out to do stuff. However, if it's a person who usually posts more like private or like content for their audience, and from time to time they have collaborations, you get the gist of it. Yeah.
But like I think like with those specific campaigns, like if they never really advertise anything, but then all of them advertise the same thing, it's like, should I be suspicious?
No, but I mean, maybe it's, I mean, for sure they've been approached by a brand, but I would also say like, if those are people you've been following because they have like valuable content and they're kind of have a certain portion of your trust, give it a try. I mean, I guess there's like a trial period for that. Yeah. So I mean, I'm also very suspicious about that. So I know what you're talking about.
That's why I'm asking.
But still, there is some stuff where I would say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. For example, like now, like example from my life, I listen a lot to podcasts, especially to Andrew Huberman. He talks a lot about mental health and also like physical health, etc. And he's been talking about honest greens a lot. So basically, I've been getting honest greens ads every time I go onto like Instagram or YouTube. Like I open it and there's like an not honest greens. Oh my god, how is it called? AG. Wow. Okay, I can't remember. It's like a supplement. It's called AG1 now.
Okay.
It's but the name was different.
I think there's
Athletic Greens. Athletic
yes,
Greens.
yes.
I'm sorry, not Honest Greens. That's the restaurant.
but there's so many influencers I follow, especially in the health industry, and also like big ones.
Yeah.
It's like, do they have such a massive budget? Because like, I think everyone has a price. Like
Yeah, no,
even
for
the
sure.
ones that are the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
loyal, if they offer you like 2 million for one
Yeah, for
post,
sure.
you know, it, like, and they might know like, okay, we actually get it back if like Andrew Huberman is talking about this, or like it's also this Rangan Chatterjee, which is like this other podcast I listen to a lot, which is like really with health and super interesting insights. And his adverts in front of his podcast are like 3 minutes long sometimes, and it's like, I get that that's where you get your money from, but like 3 minute long adverts. But okay, podcasts are different to like social media. I mean, I guess that's what the marketing is. So many people are promoting it, so many social media people, and it's like, it's a supplement, which in my head is like, is it really that healthy? And it's always like, oh, it's a supplement, it's on top of nutrition, not like shouldn't replace it, yada yada. How do you feel with your, like the people that you really follow and trust, like you said, Andrew Huberman, you knowing what's happening in the background? Are you still like, okay, I trust this person, I trust that the product is good?
Yeah, for example, for me, it was like, because I've now like really started to like read more about nutrition, like see that maybe since I'm vegetarian, there are maybe some things that I'm missing in my day-to-day like nutrition. And also when I listen, for example, to this podcast, like this is like a particular example, like I've seen it everywhere now. He kind of discloses also, like he's been using it since 2012, for example, but now they are also a sponsor of the show. So for me, in the end, I think this is a very personal thing. Everyone needs to decide, okay, do I blindly trust this person? Do I also read what is going into the product? So for me, it was like, okay, I go on their website, I see what is in there, like how do they produce it? And then you make like an educated decision.
Yeah.
Just to go blindly and say like, oh yeah, you know, I'm buying that. Yeah.
I think, yes. Like I think a lot of people will do extra research. Like, okay, I heard about this. Like me with this invoicing tool. It's like, I don't think this is, like, this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
But also there are people who's like, I trust this person, I just buy it. Or I've had like 3-4 people talk about it now, so I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like word of mouth. Because for me, it's the same. Like if I hear a friend talk, it happened now like about the course, I think. I have a friend who just told me about this amazing course she did on ChatGPT. Like I'm not gonna read all the insights about the course. I'm like, I trust her, I know her. So basically she recommended this to me. I'm gonna kind of set my money on it. And I don't know how, you know, I'm gonna invest now 100 euros in it. And I'm gonna see if it's worth it or not. And basically, in the end, if I'm gonna get out of it and say like, oh, okay, this was really not so much worth it, so I will at least have the learnings. Okay, for next time, maybe I take it with a grain of salt, the stuff she recommends to me. I think it is in the end like kind of a trial and error period, and also why those influencers or this kind of influencer culture is so like present right now is because we trust word of mouth so much.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they kind of like profit
works.
on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be necessarily bad, you know. Like if it's a product, but there is some stuff out there that's like amazing, but just no one knows about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, why shouldn't maybe this tool, this invoice tool, is gonna be like amazing and it's gonna revolutionize your world, and you know. You won't have to write an invoice ever again. So who knows, you know? And we just have to kind of decide who we put our trust in.
Yeah. And I think like I'm just trying to get it back to freelancing somehow.
Yeah, it's true. We kind of got away from it.
I think it's also like very much trial and error when you freelance, because you figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Because like now like back to the invoicing and the client who didn't pay. I mean, they paid, but they paid delayed, and it's the one where I have my subcontractor on. And I just told her like, don't worry, you get paid for your hours. Like I hired you, so don't worry. And I have enough savings like for these kind of occasions. But I just want you to know what's going on in the background, like that they're not paying their invoices on time. Because, for example, I was saying like it's part of the contract that they have to pay the late payment fee. They pay the invoice, but without the extra fee. And then I was like, wait, did they actually sign that contract? And because in my head, it's like I've prepared the contract, I've signed it, I sent it over to them. So from my end, it was done. But they've never sent the signed version.
I didn't ever send it back.
No,
wow.
But it's also a standard procedure. So even if there's no official contract, even if it's just like I have proof of emails that's like, okay, we're starting work, and also we're in the Slack channel now, which shows that work is going on. And I think the default late payment fee is actually higher than what I have in the contract. So even though they didn't sign the contract, I might even be better off than not signing technically. I don't want to go for core procedure or whatever.
Of course,
but yeah, so it's things like that where it's like, okay, I learned it for the next time. And even though it's a client I've worked with in the past, and I know they're a bit chaotic, I know they missed the one or the other invoice, but now it's been 3 invoices they paid, but never on time. And it's kind of like, for me, it's a bit disrespectful. And so it's like, okay, it's trial and error. So how am I going to compensate for it next time? Even though I trust another client from the past and they book me again, I'm going to be like, please pay 5 days in advance. Just so there's something there, just for goodwill, whatever. So it's going to be like, okay, this happened, I learned from it, next one I'll do differently. And you don't want to ruin the trust, but you learn from it. And also business is business.
But I also feel it's kind of setting your boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, it's the thing you were saying, like if people who don't say they are going on vacation, they just keep on checking their emails, or people who just answer the phone all the time. I mean, it's Sunday, don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Like if it's really, there is no design emergency, there is no social media emergency, like
deadlines.
Exactly.
Who is going to be dead?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like it's never. It's like I understand when there's like legal things. Like I remember this whole GDPR thing, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, we have to have this live by this time."
No, of course.
But now it's like it's a design, it's a feature. No one's going to die if this is going to go live a couple days late. And also, like so far, all the deadlines were met. I never had any issues with that, luckily.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of like this stress, this drama, and it's. That was trial and error for me. One of the first gigs I started was a startup where I really liked the values, and she said up front, I can't afford your rate, but I would love to work with you. Is there somewhere we can meet in the middle? So we agreed on a lower price, and that client turned out to be the nightmare client, like the worst client I've had. Yes, she paid her invoices on time, but she would message you, Slack you so many times. And we agreed to like 2 days per week or something, and she would constantly message, and then even though it wasn't a day that was dedicated to her, it's like, oh, can you do this quickly, it's just a 5-minute job. Yes, it's a 5-minute job, but I'm working on something else. So context switching, like finding that file, this, that, and it's like, why do you stress me now? Because you know what days I'm working for. But back then I was like so worried that like I wanted to also appease her a little bit in the sense of like I want her to like me because I like her values, I really like the company, and it's also this kind of client relationship where you get on personality wise, but there's like this business thing. So it's like you still have to like put up a bit of a wall, maybe not a wall, but like a fence or something. Yeah. So it's kind of like I like you as a person, but while we're working together, we are not going to talk about your relationship issues, or we're not going to talk about this, that. Yeah. So it's different when you're in a work environment, I think, like in a permanent job, where maybe you meet your colleagues all the time in an office, and then there's going to be chatter, people talk to you about their personal lives, you become friends outside of work as well. But I think when you freelance, and it's like a set amount of time, it's tricky sometimes. With some clients, they're incredibly nice, but it's also like you don't want to get involved in any gossip. That's the thing that I love about freelancing. Yeah. You usually don't get involved into company politics. You don't know if Peter from HR had a thing with the intern or something. You don't know that. You get So
all the important information gets missing there.
You can actually concentrate on your job, and you're not in. It's sometimes you hear maybe something if you on a contract for like more than 3-4 months, but also because it's freelance, it's usually for one specific project. I mean, I don't know, with social media you probably have a few rolling clients.
Yeah, like for example, for me, as I said, like I'm just starting out now, so for me what I'm really happy about is about this one client I booked, because it's kind of a very consistent one. They've been looking for someone for a whole year at least. So we signed a contract for a year for 30 hours a week. So for me that's like amazing, because I kind of have like this still kind of security to start freelancing and still have time to do some small projects next to it. So with them I'm a bit more involved, because it's really a lot of hours. But with this other projects, basically we just organize meetings. Like for example, okay, let's have a catch-up meeting to kind of review what we're gonna do. So basically to not waste too much time in meetings, but just focus on getting stuff done, and then just really schedule a meeting to talk about stuff, present results, and then that's it. Because I feel so much time gets wasted in meetings.
Yes. And I also think because you're a freelancer, people are like, oh no, we're paying that person X amount, which is usually more than they pay a permanent person. So they double check if they should invite you in a meeting or not. So they're like, actually, this could be an email. And it's also sometimes you have to teach that to your clients that, well, this could have been an email. It would have been more efficient if you would have just been like, oh, can you add this there? You don't have to do a call. And another thing that's so interesting, some clients are pretty much like, hi, we need X, Y, and Z. Any questions? No, bye. And other clients are like, how was your weekend? How
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it?
yeah.
So it's also, you have to learn to do the same.
Yeah.
Because I feel like those clients where they're like, and you ask them, how was your day? They're like, I don't want to waste time on that.
Yeah.
And those clients where you don't, like, that ask you a question, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't ask them back, like, oh, this person's a bit rude. Because also people work with you, not just with the quality of your work, but because of your personality.
Yeah, that's true. Like, that's such a big thing. I didn't thought it would be, but yeah, for me, actually, there was one big thing that I was really worried when because I was, as I was saying, in January, I got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna take some time to think what I want to do. And then when I kind of decided, okay, I'm gonna start freelancing, so I started to work on my website and started to kind of tell people I'm gonna freelance, so maybe someone knows of some projects and so on. And then in the end, I was really, really worried that, wow, what, you know, after a month or two, when you're like kind of thinking about it and like nothing happened. I remember, like, I met a friend and she was telling me about this job, like she's working in a cosmetics company, and she was telling me, you know, we have an opening in marketing. If you want, like, for sure I can, you know, pull some strings, and
Network.
they need someone. Exactly.
Network.
But then she was telling me about her job. It wouldn't be like freelancing. It would be like fully employed.
Mm-hmm.
And she works like from 8 to 8. She's so stressed out all the time. And I was just like looking at her, and I was feeling like, and I told her, like, I'm so grateful that you've been thinking about me, but I just, although I'm super worried I'm not gonna get a client, I just really don't want to go back to like being employed. And then the next day I got like an email from like this recruiter who were looking for someone like to actually work like in my dream organization for a project that I'm really, really passionate about. So I think sometimes it's maybe just a matter of having faith and kind of waiting stuff out, and maybe just like if you start walking in the right direction, I feel stuff is gonna start rolling.
I think so. It's like people think like, oh my god, I'm never gonna find a client. And we talked about this the other day as well,
exactly.
where it's like people are so scared not finding clients. But what I've experienced from most of the people that I met is like they suddenly get so many projects that they get overwhelmed. They don't know what to do with their time. They start procrastinating on the wrong things, and then they do everything last minute, and it's just like too much. But I also feel like every freelancer has to go through that phase to learn who to say yes to, what projects to say no to. And also every time you say yes to a client, you kind of say no to what you initially wanted to do with freelancing, that you have more free time. And it's easy to get this, especially when you just start, this fear of like, what if I was just lucky with this client? What if nobody else books me? But it's like, no, there's always project, there's always clients. I'm going to wrap this up with 3 questions that I usually ask at the end of a podcast. And you just started. So I don't know how relevant this question is now, but would you ever go back to a permanent job?
From where I'm right now, no. Because I don't know how long I can extend the answer, but like the first time I started to work remotely, where I had like I was working for one company that I had complete freedom of where I was working on and like the hours. Oh my god, it was such a life-changing experience. I just moved out of my flat. I spent 2 months on the Canary Islands. I was surfing every day, and I was still working, you know. So I was like, wow, I love this. You know, like I love being the boss of me. I love being able to kind of schedule my time, especially because I sometimes do have the problem of procrastination. So if someone tells me you need to be 8 hours in front of the computer, that's just not me. Like I sometimes, for example, now I kind of got used to this routine where I work in the morning, then I maybe go to the gym or I go outside, and then in the afternoon I maybe sit down again to just catch up on work and do some maybe not so important work, just more organizing stuff and so on. For now, no.
It just gets better.
Okay, I hope so.
And another question, if you could go back in time to January, where you were let go, what would you tell your 6 months younger self?
I would say like not to worry. That stuff kind of has its way of working out. And just to kind of trust in the process, you know, and then even when you think stuff's not moving forward, but it kind of is, because you know, maybe the day that you just moved around on your website like 2 paragraphs, but hey, at least you kind of wrote down what your website's about, and you designed the layout. So for me, I got very frustrated in that process, because I was like, oh my god, I'm procrastinating so much, I'm not doing anything. So, and in the end, I think that's the thing, like just to kind of trust it.
You have a running website now, so
yeah,
you've done
yeah,
something.
yeah. I know. I'm so happy about it. Like that was such a big achievement, and just to kind of, you know, say like, okay, it's done. Like I still can do so much stuff better, but I think it's just this 80%, 70-80% rule, where it doesn't have to be perfect. Just like make it work. If it's working, you can still perfect it afterwards. So
it's better to have some sort of website live, even if it's just your email address, than it would be to have nothing.
That's true.
Because this way you can get found online. And absolutely.
Yeah.
And the final question: if your future self, let's say 5 years from now, would travel back in time to you today, what do you think would they tell you?
Wow, it's a really hard question, huh? Like, I hope she's kind of like telling me, oh, you know, you're already financially independent and you have your van and you're just traveling around. I hope she's gonna tell me I know how to set boundaries. That I will enjoy kind of the reasons why I became a freelancer is to have more time and be financially independent. And that I don't get stuck in this, what you were saying, like getting too many clients and working like till 9 in the evening and so on. Like, I hope that she will tell me that we managed to kind of keep that at bay and still reach the financial goals, and also that I kind of like didn't just stay in the social media area, because I would love to kind of expand on that, maybe doing maybe some consulting or some different kind of business assessment. So yeah, hopefully in 5 years maybe I'm there already. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, it looks like you have a route planned and a goal with touring with your van.
I hope so.
Expanding your business, so.
I hope so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this was really, really nice. I hope the sound is okay.
Yeah, I hope so too. But thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thanks so
I
much.
hope
This was
it wasn't too long.
But
yeah. No, but it was a great experience. So
Thanks
for me
so
also
much.
first. Yeah.